The ice cream clue refers to a piece of evidence from the O.J. Simpson murder trial involving the discovery of a partially frozen container of ice cream on a banister inside Nicole Brown Simpson's condominium, found by police around 12:30 a.m. on June 13, 1994. This detail has been cited in discussions about the timeline of the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, which occurred outside her Brentwood, Los Angeles home on June 12, 1994. The significance of the ice cream lies in its potential to narrow down the time of the murders, which could either implicate or exculpate O.J. Simpson, who was acquitted of the murders in 1995. Below is a detailed examination of this clue, its implications, and its role in the case, drawing on available sources and critical analysis. Context of the ice cream clue. On the evening of June 12, 1994, Nicole Brown Simpson and her children, along with others, attended a dance recital for her daughter Sydney. Afterward, they dined at Mezzaluna restaurant and stopped at a Ben & Jerry's ice cream parlor in Brentwood. Nicole purchased ice cream, which she brought back to her condominium at 875 South Bundy Drive. After the murders, which took place outside her home, police arrived at the scene around 12:10 a.m. on June 13th, following a neighbor's discovery of the bodies, prompted by Nicole's dog barking with blood on its paws. During the initial investigation, Officer Robert Risk, the first policeman on the scene, noted a cardboard cup of ice cream on a downstairs banister inside the condominium, described as partially frozen or half-melted when found around 12:30 a.m. The local weather that night was reported to be around 60 degrees 16 dash, a relatively cool temperature for Los Angeles. The defense team argued that, given this temperature, the ice cream should have been nearly fully melted by 12:30 a.m. if it had been sitting out for several hours. The partially frozen state suggested to them that the ice cream had not been on the banister for long, implying the murders occurred later than the prosecution's estimated timeline, potentially closer to 10:30 p.m. This timing was significant because O.J. Simpson claimed he was at his Brentwood estate, waiting for a limousine to take him to the airport for a flight to Chicago around 11:00 p.m. However, prosecutors pointed to an unaccounted hour in Simpson's alibi, roughly between 9:00 p.m. and 10:00 p.m., during which his whereabouts were unclear. Timeline and relevance. To understand the ice cream clue's significance, let's outline the key events of the evening based on witness testimony and court records. 6:30 p.m. Nicole Brown Simpson, her children, and others dined at Mezzaluna restaurant. 8:00 p.m. Nicole and her children stopped at Ben & Jerry's for ice cream before returning home. 9:00 to 9:30 p.m. O.J. Simpson and Brian Cato Kalin, a friend staying at Simpson's estate, went to McDonald's for dinner. Simpson returned to his home afterward to prepare for a late-night flight to Chicago. 9:37 p.m. Nicole's mother, Juditha Brown, called Mezzaluna to report lost eyeglasses. Ronald Goldman, a waiter, volunteered to deliver them to Nicole's home after his shift ended at 9:50 p.m. 10:00 p.m. Approximate. The prosecution argued the murders occurred around this time, based on forensic evidence and witness accounts, such as a neighbor hearing a dog barking aggressively. 11:00 p.m., Juditha Brown stated she spoke with Nicole on the phone, suggesting Nicole was alive at this time. This testimony was sealed, but it raised questions about the exact timing. 11:00 p.m., Simpson claimed he was at his home, preparing to leave for the airport. His limousine driver, Alan Park, arrived around 10:25 p.m., but did not see Simpson's white Ford Bronco until later, and Simpson did not answer the intercom until around 11:00 p.m., 12:10 a.m., June 13th. A neighbor discovered the bodies after following Nicole's dog, which had blood on its paws. Police arrived shortly after, 12:30, 12:40 a.m. Officer Risk observed the partially frozen ice cream on the banister. The prosecution's timeline placed the murders around 10 p.m. to 10:15 p.m., supported by forensic evidence like blood drops, a bloody glove, and shoe prints, as well as witness reports of barking. The defense, however, argued that the partially frozen ice cream suggested the murders occurred later, closer to 10:30 p.m. or beyond, as Nicole would have placed the ice cream on the banister upon returning home and been interrupted by the attack shortly after. This later timeline could align with Simpson's claim of being at home by 11 o'clock p.m., potentially reducing the window for him to commit the murders and return to his estate. Defense and prosecution arguments. Defense perspective. Ice cream as a time marker. Defense attorney Johnny Cochran questioned Officer Risky about the ice cream, emphasizing that it was still partially frozen at 12:30 a.m. They argued that in 60-degree weather, ice cream left out for over 2 hours, if placed around 10 o'clock p.m., would have melted significantly more. The partial freezing suggested Nicole placed the ice cream on the banister closer to the time of the murders, possibly after 10:30 p.m., when Simpson was already at home or en route to the airport. Challenging the timeline. The defense used the ice cream to cast doubt on the prosecution's timeline, suggesting the murders occurred later than 10 p.m. They pointed to Simpson's activities, such as eating with Kaylin and preparing for his flight, to argue he had little time to commit the murders, clean up, and return home. Police mishandling. The defense also highlighted police errors in evidence collection, including not photographing the ice cream or documenting its condition thoroughly, to argue that critical evidence was overlooked or mismanaged. This fit their broader narrative of a sloppy investigation, which they claimed compromised other evidence like DNA. Prosecution perspective. Alternative explanations. Prosecutor Marcia Clark suggested the ice cream might have been placed in the freezer after Nicole returned home and taken out later, delaying its melting. She also noted a pink plastic spoon on the floor beneath the cup, suggesting it fell as the ice cream softened, which could explain its state without requiring a later murder time. Forensic evidence priority. The prosecution focused on DNA evidence, blood drops, and shoe prints linking Simpson to the crime scene, arguing these were more definitive than the ice cream's condition. They claimed the murders occurred around 10 o'clock p.m., supported by a neighbor's report of barking and the presence of blood in Simpson's Bronco and home. Police procedure. Officer Risk testified that his role was to secure the scene and look for victims, not to collect evidence like the ice cream or test bathwater temperature. Another defense-raised clue. The prosecution argued that the lack of photographs or detailed notes on the ice cream was not unusual given the chaotic initial response to a double homicide. Scientific and practical considerations. The ice cream's condition hinges on several variables. Melting rate. Ice cream's melting rate depends on its composition. Fat content, air incorporation, container type, cardboard versus insulated, and environmental factors like temperature and humidity. At 60 degrees F, ice cream would soften significantly within 30 to 60 minutes and become mostly liquid after 2 to 3 hours, especially in a non-insulated container. The partially frozen description suggests it was soft but retained some structure, implying it had been out for less than a few hours. No specific tests were conducted on the ice cream to determine its exact state or time of placement. Placement timing. The defense assumed Nicole placed the ice cream on the banister upon returning home around 8:30 to 9 p.m. and was killed shortly after. However, if she placed it in the freezer and removed it later, e.g., after her 11 o'clock p.m. call with her mother, the partial freezing could align with an earlier murder time. The prosecution's freezer theory lacks direct evidence but is plausible. Police observations. Officer Riscar's testimony about the ice cream was not supported by photographs or forensic analysis, as his focus was on securing the scene. The defense argued this was a missed opportunity to establish the timeline, while the prosecution downplayed its significance compared to DNA evidence. Alignment with Simpson's unaccounted hour. The prosecution highlighted that Simpson's whereabouts were unclear between approximately 9 o'clock p.m. and 10 o'clock p.m. After returning from McDonald's with Kaylin around 9:30 p.m., Simpson was at his estate, but not seen by others until he interacted with the limousine driver around 11 o'clock p.m. The prosecution argued this window allowed Simpson to drive to Nicole's condominium a few minutes away, commit the murders, and return home. The defense's ice cream argument suggested a later murder time, 10:30 p.m. or later, which would compress this window and make it less likely for Simpson to have committed the crime, cleaned up and disposed of evidence, e.g. the missing murder weapon and bloody clothes, before his flight.